as we move into this next panel about messaging the music. Can y'all clap it up as I say the names? I didn't know how to get out of that moment. I was like, people looking at me like, damn. That's the power of vulnerability, though. So coming up here, we're gonna bring our moderator up, and I'm gonna let you introduce him, Syreeta. You got it. So, one of the best journalists in the city of Philadelphia, strategic storyteller of Love Now Media. Give a round of applause for Syreeta Martin.
Dang, that was love. Thank you. Hey, y'all. How y'all doing? Are you feeling the love? You been carrying love in your spirit? I hope so. It can be hard to do that, to stay tapped in with it. And this work at Love Now Media, I'm thankful for it because I get to be beyond intentional and being mindful of my energy. And not only that, but being mindful that I am a conduit of love at all times. And to be human is one thing, but to be a human that's being intentional about being a conduit of love is a whole nother thing. And so I'm grateful. I'm grateful to be here with you all. And I'm really excited about the panel that we're about to get into. I had the opportunity throughout the work that we've been doing with Heart of the Story to be present for a lot of the workshops, right? And what I really like to kind of share with you all is that work over the past, I guess like month and a half, 2 months almost, what it really confirmed for me about the heart of the story is that the heart writes the story. Right? The heart writes the story. We live it. And so in doing that, the mind is like often credited with conceiving a thing or envisioning the reality, but the seed of the conception, right? That begins in the heart. And the mind is really but like a stop after the fact. When we're talking about the journey of manifesting and realizing the fullness of our respective stories. Music is one of the most powerful forms of storytelling, right? Hands down. And with that means it's one of the most powerful forms of communicating messages. And so with that, we thought it was really important to have a conversation about the music and the message. And really it was inspired in part by two of our panelists who are going to be joining us, and an interaction that they had on IG over social media. And Joss happened to see it and she was like, we gotta have them at the event. We gotta have a larger conversation about that. And so that's how this came about. For the next, I want to say 30 minutes or so, we'll explore messages in the music and also the message and the music with four artists and community stakeholders. So I'm going to ask each of them to come up. Jacqueline Constance. Yes. Neptune XXI. Mazzie Casher. And Twizz Matic. Give them a round of applause as they come to the stage. Give them love. Making her way, making her way.
Nosedive, they just praying that I crash. But those guys, they don't want to see you last.
It's about to go in. So welcome you all. I'm gonna just do a brief introduction, but of course you all can tell a little bit more about yourselves. Jacqueline Constance is a singer, songwriter who also produces some of her own material with just a mic, digital sampling, foot pedal, and a small mixer. So give it up for Jacqueline Constance. Thank you, guys. Neptune XXI. Now, mind you, let me just be honest, okay? It's Roman numerals in Neptune's name. And so when I've been following you on social and like, I say Neptune XXI. Because because I'm not real good with my Roman numerals. But it's 21, Neptune 21, who likes to, Neptune 21, who likes to rap without a beat so you can hear her flow. She's a creative educator and visionary out of Washington, D.C., who is intentional about evolving with community. So give it up for Neptune. Mazzie Casher, co-founder of the Philly TRUCE Foundation and the Philly TRUCE app. Mazzie's career has spanned television, film, and stage play, and of course music, as an artist to be forever known and respected as Grand Agent. So give it up for Mazzie. And then Twizz Matic, a producer, an artist, a visionary in his own right. So thankful you can join us. We're about to get into it. Give it up for Twizz. Woo! So jumping right in, what messages in music have influenced you, both as an individual and as an artist? And Twizz, we'll start with you.
Say the question one more time.
Messages in music that have influenced you as an individual and as an artist.
Any music, just music, period.
Your music.
Well, as a producer, I've always been swayed to make more gangster hip-hop beats, but I always liked Tribe Called Quest. You know, more positive messages. I started off gospel rapping, so everything was about positivity and just making sure I wasn't saying anything that was going to disrespect my parents or any of the elders. So, you know, all kinds of messages, I guess, but like the main, I guess, force that drives me is just like a good feeling. So like jazz music, soulful hip hop, J Dilla, you know, of course the lyrics are always a little raunchy, but it's usually just those, you know, they call it lo-fi today, that really feel good music, but jazz is probably like one of the, I guess, biggest inspirations.
Wow.
Yeah.
Got you. Thank you. Mazzie?
Yeah, I mean, for me, you know, I grew up really alongside hip-hop, so, you know, my first memory is like being on the porch, somebody come up, play The Message, and it kind of just all went from there, you know what I mean? I grew up when, you know, all the local artists making records was not much older than me, 15, 16, you know, Steady B, Will Smith. Schoolie D was a little older, but, you know, they was in high school making records, and I probably was 10 or 11 at that time, so it seemed very possible to me, you know what I mean? And I think more than anything, the most attractive thing about hip-hop was, you know, for me, even then, as a kid, I could feel the power of the platform to get messages across to the community. And, you know, probably even before it started happening. I mean, you know, the message was the message, but before Public Enemy, before KRS-One, like, I would sit there and just kind of marvel at, and for me, it's more about records than music. I mean, a record is what it says. It's a record of a moment in history and a time and a place. And I just thought that was a powerful thing to be able to do, to make a record of your circumstances, you know what I'm saying, at any given point in time, and be able to have that exist later for people to come behind you and take from that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thinking even as far as music as documenting.
Yeah, no doubt.
Documenting stories in history. Neptune?
So I would say the themes that stick out to me most and inspire me are definitely all heartfelt. So I would say themes around self-determination, around encouragement, around family and community, and also, you know, things that make you feel good on the inside, you know what I mean? Where you can like listen to some music and it kind of like pump you up, you know? So that's what I would say inspires me the most.
Jacqueline, messages in music that have influenced you both as an individual and an artist.
So like to answer this is like twofold, right? Because I think for me, answering that has to be also like answering with like the artist that gave me those messages too. So I'm an 80s baby, and of course, I don't know about y'all, but the way I was woken up on a Sunday was with Shaka Khan playing. And that's how I knew I had to get down and start watching the baseboards, you know what I'm saying? But a lot of the messages that I got from like those early moments and like the music that was getting played for me was like these messages of like freedom, of like liberation, of like, I am who I am and you will deal and you will either get warmed by this fire or you'll burn up, it's up to you type time. So a lot of those messages were framed to me like early on by like your Shaka Khans and Rufus and Earth, Wind and Fire. And now some of the artists like that give me those messages are like your Kendrick Lamar's, your FKA Twigs, like the artists like that. So like a lot of the messages that I have gotten from like a lot of the music that I absorb currently is like messages of like freedom and liberation. So.
Gotcha. Thank you all. So based on your perspective, oh yes, please, we welcome claps. Based on your perspectives as an artist and therefore messenger who communicates through music, what are your observations about the current state of music artistry and the messages it is specifically communicating to Black boys and men? Look.
Well, I mean, I think, you know, it would be easy to say it's a mess, but I think it's bigger than that. You know, I heard somebody say it like this, you know, the state of Black music on the radio may be horrible. I mean, the state of hip hop may be healthy if you know where to look for it, you know where to shop for it. You know, as far as the drill music, yeah, it's problematic. I mean, in that it inundates our kids and, you know, those men-child among us who not quite kids, not quite men. And it was mentioned earlier about discerning the fantasy from the reality. I mean, that's always been an issue with hip-hop, I think, because where it come from, right? It come from us. It come from people who, you know, our respect a lot of times is all we got. You know what I'm saying? Our word is our bond. And, you know, I think early on we started getting confused about, am I disingenuous if I don't do everything I say in my record? This is not a new phenomenon. You know what I'm saying? Let's go back to the 80s. And, you know, like was mentioned about, you know, Future. You know, I mean, Too Short, the same thing. You know, you get Too Short in a private room, and it's like, no, I don't, you know, I don't act like that. But, you know, some people can handle putting on a persona and taking it off, and some people can't. So, again, I think it was left off with critical thinking. If we can have enough dialogue with our young people, or if we can balance the presentation so that it's not all one way, then I think we could see the bigger reality. I mean, there's so much music coming out every day at this point, right? I mean, I remember 10 years ago, 8,000 new releases on iTunes every Tuesday. So imagine where we at now. So if we only see one thing, I guess we have to question the agenda. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Anybody else want to chime in on that?
I would ask, can you re-ask the question?
Yeah. Just based on your perspective, like, what are your observations of the current state of music?
Yeah.
And then also the messages that it's specifically communicating to Black boys and men.
I feel like the messages that are specific to Black boys and men definitely revolve around Black trauma and around death. And in a lot of ways, it is reflective of our environments, not everyone's environment, but a lot of people's environment. And like he said, I definitely think that there's an agenda behind that, because there are artists that make music that you would consider positive or conscious, but those aren't the songs that you hear on the radio. So I think it's also about the agenda.
Now, oh, go ahead. So what did you want to?
No, I was saying, Yeah, I agree with what they were saying about the messages are trauma-based. I think there's a lot of hate. You know, it's based in hate. Like when you want to, kill your ops, you basically wishing, praying on their downfall. That's the opposite of love. So I think it comes from us and what we perpetuate in the streets, in the hood that we grow up in. I think we do need to take a lot of accountability for the kind of children that we do raise. I know a brother had mentioned it earlier. You can put it on the labels because they are definitely not, taking any accountability as well for the things they put out. I mean, I saw an interview with Leora Cohen where he said, where Charlamagne asked him, you feel this way about kids dying from opioids. He said, well, why are you putting the music out? He's like, well, hey, I got bills to pay. I got mouths to feed. It's like, you said it right there. And it's like, did that go viral? Did anyone see that, But that's like them telling you how they feel about you. But the kids still sign the labels, sign the deals, 360s here and there. And, we get the same results. So I think the root of the problem, it is still us. I mean, we couldn't stop it, but we got to look at, changing laws and things that are allowed to happen because of this, because it all stems back to like a core of something. So I see a lot of people a lot of us aren't in politics, but we should get into it because changing laws does help a lot. And I see a lot of groups out there that actually, are changing laws and getting things done. So,
Yeah. I want to, Jack, let me first ask, any thoughts? Yeah, Carper.
Yeah, a lot of what I'm going to say really quickly is going to echo a lot of the sentiments already up here. I think a lot of the state of music that I see currently is just the larger conversation is around the environments that a lot of artists are coming from, and then also what is the popular thing to do that's getting people to cash the checks. And what I'm seeing is that Black culture is a culture that's emulated across the globe, right? It's something that you see like from South Korea to Indonesia to Brazil, right? Like, especially like when we like kind of piggybacking off of like the drill music, like drill music is like global, right? There's not just American drill artists, like drill music is like all over the place. And what happens a lot of times is that you see culture or what's being perceived as culture emulated throughout these other sectors. So like for me it's a nuanced conversation, because if it's violence and trapping and like all these things being uplifted and that's the things that's getting the money and that's where the money is going to and that's the artist that's being projected, then it's like that's what you're going to hear, right? Like I can go in my Rolodex of like Spotify and like my Spotify list don't sound like that, but I also listen to indie artists that like are not signed to major labels and things like that. So I think there's a larger conversation around like who's actually divvying out the money that these particular things about our particular music and culture is being uplifted. Like who's cashing those checks? Who's like having these young bulls go into these contracts and things like that where a lot of that lingo, and I'm not gonna lie, I've seen a few of these contracts just from the homies, and like these contracts be crazy. But like who's actually investing in this type of music? Because I think there's a difference between saying and speaking on your own personal experiences and then trying to emulate what's popular, right? And there's this really fine line in between. So like, I think it's a little bit more of a nuanced conversation than just like, oh, our music is violent, but like, there's a couple whys in there that like, we can't just ignore. Like, we gotta touch on that, and it's a larger sort of conversation to have, so.
That reminds me of an article. It's called "Stop Blaming Rappers for a Problem America Created." It's on complex.com, and it's by Andre Gee. It may be G-E-E. But basically, G writes, artists who tell harsh stories of life in the streets are born into oppressive structures that predate them. If they don't have the right to tell their stories, then who does? So how do we heal and evolve our community while also being mindful about the policing of our storytelling? Because that's kind of like the crossroads, the nuance that we're at, right? Is artists are telling their stories because they live in these environments, or not just because, but they live in these environments that are systemically oppressed, right? So they're just telling their stories, telling their truths, but they're doing it so well, and it's being funded in such a way that it is now developing the power of controlling and influencing culture and perpetuating the very circumstances in some ways that they're coming out of or trying to escape. So how, like, that catch-22. Go ahead, Neptune.
Yeah, so I honestly think it comes down, like, it goes beyond the music, you know, and more into the individual. So there's this book called A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle, and Kendrick Lamar references this book in Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. So it's a concept in the book called pain bodies. And basically what pain bodies is like, if you, let's say you're having a great day, right? And all of a sudden you think of something that is not so great in your day, and you start to harp on that thing. Well, that's kind of triggered by the pain body. And so I think that when it goes beyond, you know, the music into the individual, it really comes down to, like, what are you doing to heal yourself? You know, and what are you doing to kind of like make yourself bigger than your environment, you know, or better than what you come from, you know? And if you don't take those steps to really heal yourself, then you're gonna constantly, you know, stay in this cycle within yourself, which contributes to the art and contributes to the music, where you still telling these stories versus starting to talk about your own personal healing journey and how you went from, you know, being on the corner to being in the penthouse for real, you know, or, you know, any of those things. So I think it really goes down to the individual and how we, like, artists that are conscious, how we put the message in the music to, you know, kind of like force people to see outside of their realities, you know what I mean, and make them want to do better. So then that reality becomes what's reflected in the music.
Yeah, Jacqueline?
Sort of like piggybacking, I think someone said it, I think, brother right here, you said it. You can tell the difference in an artist and what they're experiencing, what they're currently dealing with, because the language changes, right? So like speaking of Kendrick, Section 80, Good Kid, Mad City are totally different than Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, right? And it's because somewhere in that, not only did he, like, yeah, he went to therapy, he was talking to people, but his stature and his capital gave him the resources to, right? So at some point, in order for our young people, the people that's in these spaces who are talking about these things, to change the language, they have to be given the resources to change the language. So we can't just be like, well, I hate that you talk about violence when that's all you know, right? I hate that you talk about this when where there hasn't been any like community spaces or spaces where these young people can go and actually change the language. Like, for example, like, Amin Akbar was up here earlier, right? And I had the beautiful opportunity to work with DJ Geek, with Ant, with Brandon at Youth Bill, right? And a lot of times what was happening, what the things that we were experiencing with our young people, especially around creative attributes, you would see how their language would change through their duration at their time at Youth Bill, because they were given more tools. They were given more resources, right? They were given more things other than just like, don't get me wrong, there are people and like people within those communities, things like that, people on the block that may give you things, but when you start giving different narratives, you start giving different experiences, you start giving young people different tools, then it starts reflecting in everything they do and not just the music. So how do we start creating environments like, yeah, but hoods are always going to be a thing, right? As long as capitalism is a thing, hoods are going to be a thing, right? So how do we start investing and going deeper into these environments so we can start changing the language, so there's not the amplification of violence, of drugs, of all these things, but like, it's like, oh, I've experienced these things, but I'm not of these things. You feel what I'm saying? So how do we change that?
Come on, church.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's in you, sis. Is it? Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, but like, yeah, like, how do we build, how do we like, deeper than just community, right? Because a lot of these conversations are like intro-communal conversations, right? Where like they need to happen within us, within our structures, because Black culture is the vanguard, right? We're the ones that we determine what's popular. We determine, like, with our spending power, with our dollar, with our attention, right? We determine what goes viral. We determine what's popular. We determine down to the music, to the fashion, to the looks. We determine all that. So how do we change those things? How do we establish those tools within our communities? So music is just a reflector of what's happening, right? It's a reflector of what's going on, not only on a community level, but on a cultural level, what's popular, what's going on social media, all these things. And music has done that from its creation, right? They've said the same thing about when hip hop was created. Say the same thing about disco. It's the same thing about blues. You know, that Robert Johnson, Devil's Music, right? Him at the crossroads, right? So how do we, from the beginning point, before these young bulls are on your, online or have a viral hit, before they even get there, how do we give them the tools to be like, okay, y'all, let's redirect what we're giving to our communities, to our people as this popular entity of Black culture? Like, how do we do that?
Gotcha.
So,
It also makes me think, how do we do that for artists specifically, right? Because if the artist is the conduit, right? Think of it kind of like an air conditioner or your car, right? Everything has like it has a filter. And so if the artist is the filter and they're not getting purified, they're not being able to cleanse their energy, they're not being able to process their own story and their life and being given the resources to really process their ownness, then whatever is in them is coming out in the music, right? And so it has me thinking about that healing of the artist.
Can I say one more thing before?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I talk, I'm sorry. I'm part of, like, Launchbill, I'm part of the Recording Academy, right? So we vote on the Grammys, right? Who wins the Grammys, blah, blah. And I was on a panel, not part of the panel, but I watched it. And it was Summer Walker's manager that was talking about just the, things in the music industry. And before she was signed, one of the deals that he inked within her deal was that every person within her camp, band, manager, PR, they all had to go to therapy funded by the label. That was part of, before she signed, that was part of it, right? Because there was an intentional sort of like, this music industry is grueling, it's taxing, and she's also a Black woman who's going to get subjected for her body. She's coming from, she's an ex-stripper, right? So she's already going to have those stigmas attached, right? And then she's already has her own mental health things that she's been really vocal about. So before we even get to, like, Kanye, what space? We're going to dead that, right? We're going to get to a space where it's like, all right, we're going to give you the resources. Imagine if that was afforded, right? I mean, someone spoke about the Philadelphia school system. Imagine if that was afforded to our young people directly in school. Gotcha. Every young person got therapy off rip, right? Gotcha. How different would even like culturally, even how they navigate some spaces would be, right? Especially coming out of a pandemic, coming out of like, Philadelphia has one of the highest poverty rates in the United States right now, and is what, the 8th largest city?
Yeah.
So like, how do we circumvent that? Like, how do we like, hit it at the head, like hit it at the beginning point before it even gets to a world star or a TikTok?
I want to bring in, I know we got to get ready to wrap up, and we're also going to open the floor for some questions, but Twizz, I want to bring you in as a producer. From a sonic perspective, your thoughts on how you communicate messaging and music, and what we need to be mindful of, what it would help us to be mindful of when it comes to the production of the music and the messaging that gets communicated as a result of it.
Well, we love 808s, but I know the 808 is like low vibratory frequency. So
What you mean by that? School us real quick.
The 808 is that boom, 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 that hard, that low vibration that get your red center moving and get your hips moving and all that. That's a lot of what carries a lot of these messages as well, which is very powerful. You don't really see it coming. It's not as bad as the words. Like if you have a song that's specifically telling you, oh, F this and kill this, but that's more powerful than what's being than the music itself. Like the beat itself, yeah, it could do some things to you, but not as much as those words. Like that message stays in your head. It's songs that I hate that I was like, why am I singing it? It's because repetition is the mother of learning. And if you listen to something, maybe over 3 times, it's like that's sometimes enough for it to get stuck in your head. I hate this song. And why are you singing it? It's because you don't understand science, or you understand the science of, repetition. And like it's times where I've done things where I've done it, I might have been playing drums, maybe been rapping, and I messed up on a word. And then the next time I try it again, I'll do that same mistake. What that's indicating is that you started a new line of repetition, and it's that powerful. All you need is one. Then the next one could come if you're not mindful of, what's happening. So, what was the other part of the question?
Yeah, no. I just wanted to get your thoughts on the sonic.
Production.
The sonic.
Yeah, the sonics. Yeah, I mean, it gets really nerdy. You can look this stuff up online about 808s and even chords that they say Lucifer's chords or the devil's chords. It gets deep in that regard. But I think it's more about what you're actually saying, like the lyrics specifically.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to open it up for 2 questions. Okay, I'm going to go to the gentleman, I believe in the green hoodie, and then I'll come up to you, ma'am. I got you. I got a little pep in my step. Coming through. Hey, Mom. Sorry, y'all.
I heard someone up there bring up, the school district and resources. After the Roxborough shooting, the school district has received $5 million to fund for the schools, and the school district has only put that towards security. And my whole thing was where's the resources in that? Security can stop a gun from coming into school, but that can't stop someone's mental health or the thoughts that they have going in their head. So what I believe is the school district should have put more of that money into resources for counselors, therapists, and things for that school besides just security.
I just want y'all to know Mom said, that's my baby, y'all.
Period.
Okay.
Period.
Yes, Mom. Any thoughts, replies
No.
from our guests or panelists?
Facts.
Okay.
Facts. All
All right.
facts.
He's right, definitely
Wait,
right.
did you have a question? Okay,
No.
all right.
Nope.
Yeah.
All right.
Same. Yeah.
So I took some notes as you guys were speaking. A lot of the things I jotted down was already said, but to answer this young lady's question right here about what we can do to actually change it is a few things, in my opinion. I think one of the things is educating the children early about these agendas that are being passed on in the music. I'm personally a person who has spoken on it often. People pretty much be like, she's crazy, she's talking a bunch of BS, but then we come in a different circle, and there is a lot of people who recognize that there is an agenda. So I think one way to start is teaching these children that the music is as fake as the Tooth Fairy, as fake as Santa Claus, and once you do that, it's going to cancel it out because it's going to get corny. You'll naturally cancel out the genre because now you know that the stuff that Lil Durk is talking about, he ain't really doing that. So that automatically will cancel that out as an influence. Also, in terms of the community, is we have to literally stop being unreachable. People don't feel like they're important enough, and the reality of it is everybody's important. The janitor is just as important as the CEO. In every community, there's an accountant, there's a nurse, there's a photographer, there's a janitor. And you can learn from each of those people, and we have to become accessible to the children, even if it's just having them come on your porch. My son got 7 friends that just walk in my house every day. Teach them something. Don't just be a waste of time and energy. And once we come together and pour into those people more and step up, I think that's going to create a local change.
All right,
Yeah, I agree.
thank you. And I see more hands going up, but I know we do have to wrap. So listen, y'all, give me 30 seconds.
All right, I just want to say real quick, like I like what's being said, and you talk about resources, talk about therapy, but the parents have to do that over and over. We can give them a lot of resources, we can do a lot of things with teachers, but if our parents are not backing that up, they're lost. So let's talk about that a little bit.
We're not going to be able to talk about all of it, but...
Just real quick, just on a note of like a lot of it's fake. Like Lil Durk just beat his murder charge a couple days ago. NBA YoungBoy just came home. He on house arrest. Like a lot of these rappers are catching bodies. Like a lot of this stuff is really authentic. But I think that the issue is the way that we contextualize black trauma and black pain through white supremacy. We live in a white supremacist culture. It is America. And my question for y'all really is it possible to access the validity and full depth of black experience through a white supremacist nation?
I don't even know that we're gonna have time to fully address that question.
That's a real one right there.
But if y'all wanna, anybody wanna take it?
It's a book. Franz Fanning.
Keep it short, as short as
Franz
possible.
Fanning got a book, right? Blackface, White Mask, something like that. That really breaks down the impossibility of what you just asked. So we got to figure out what our own paradigm is going to be and try to strive to that. I mean, everything is poisoned by white supremacy, worldwide.
Gotcha.
Period.
All right. One last comment, DJ Geek.
Yeah, I just clearly, like, being a DJ, I get asked to play soundtracks to events all the time. And one of the funniest, or not funny, but one of the most interesting comparisons I get to other DJs is that, like, you have to really judge what is a clean song and what is a clean song, right? So, like, songs that get the cursing removed do not make the content clean.
Right.
And people tell me that my ability, you know what I mean, my blessing to be like, that's not clean enough, and my care to decide what I play is important. But I offer this to you if you have children, folks that were asking about their kids and what their kids are listening to. Listen to it, please. Y'all always cutting it off. You don't want to hear it. My folks used to sit with us, stop the music. What did he just say? What did he just say? Because if you don't know what he said, we need to unpack what he said. Because if you go singing that out in public, somebody gonna look at me funny because you don't know what he's saying. But I say that this, on top of that, like, ask your kids why they're listening to it and what the inspiration is, right? Some kids listen for the beat and they're not paying attention to the lyrics. You do the same. I've DJed many a party with some of y'all.
That's on
You
period.
know what we be dancing to. I just say that to say we have different music for different times. Kids that dance to things on TikTok, that's not the same thing on their playlist when they're in the shower. Pay attention to when and where they listen to it so you understand why they're listening to it and what part of them is feeding. And please listen to it.
Okay. So we have to officially wrap up. Any final thoughts or comments about the message and the music that you would love to make sure folks just kind of leave with in their spirit?
Well, it takes a village to raise a child. It can also take a village to destroy one. So it's up to all of us. I think spaces like this is important.
Gotcha.
You know?
Thank you, Twizz. And where can people find you at? Follow. Y'all do your plugs while we're doing it, actually.
You can find me at Twizz Matic anywhere. If you Google me, or Instagram is T-Matic. Matic Monday, still up.
Okay, thank you. And Cassie?
Yeah, I would just like to say thanks to Josh and, for having us and putting it together. I missed the whole series, but I'm happy to be here. You know, I mean, I think the bottom line, we gotta be serious about taking care of each other. We know some parents lack certain things. We know some schools lack certain. Like, it's just like, you know, I make this record because this is where I'm from, or I had to hustle. Like, we got to stop making excuses for so many things. And that's going to take care of us, period. You know what I mean?
And there's also the Philly TRUCE app.
Oh, well, yeah. The Philly TRUCE app does exist. I mean, we offer mediation community-based. You can use the app to share information you have about potentially violent conflicts you may be involved in or may have a loved one or a neighbor, nephew, whatever. And it's confidential, no police involvement, so that's in the App Store and the Play Store. We have an album out called Truce Music that's streaming now. You can check that out. So we do actively combat this in the form of music. And, stay tuned or follow us on Instagram, Philly TRUCE.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
And Neptune.
I would just say, above all, in addition to what they said, I think it's important for us to create cultural standards that we can all actually follow and abide by and hold each other accountable. And to be our most authentic selves, because I feel like if I could be myself, and each one of us can individually be ourselves, and I think it'll create for, a better environment, better society. Yeah. And y'all can follow me everywhere at Neptune XXI.
Thank you. And Jacqueline Constance.
Going to leave with something that I heard just through absorbing information and I'm on the TikTok streets too. But someone was talking about music in general, and one of the things that they mentioned, I forgot the name of this particular person, but they said that outrage is social currency. And the more that we buy into systems, and going back to what Ant said, the idea that there is no proper navigation or safe navigation within a white supremacist structure, right? So how we determine what's popular, how we determine what's these things, and how we determine is, really divesting and really going into what we give our attention to, what we give our money to, and what is actually being that's in our communities, and actually start to navigate those spaces accordingly is how we start reworking and decolonizing what's happening in music. But shameless plug, my name is Jacqueline Constance. Follow me on all social medias, JACQCON Music on all the social things, and yeah.
All right, let's give it up for our panelists. Thank you all. Blessings to you.
Thank you.
And I'm going to pass it over to Josh.
Yes. Thank you so much, everybody. Can we give them all a round of applause once again? I also just want to give some special acknowledgement to Syreeta Martin. Syreeta, come back up here, please. Syreeta is our strategic storyteller for Love Now Media. We kind of went into a little bit of a heads down, hammer it out, oh my God, the world is changing. And this woman right here just doubled up and supported this organization in ways I could never imagine. So I just want to acknowledge that. Syreeta, thank you so much. Can we give her some special love? Thank you.